Hi everyone, I'm Sandie La Nae. Welcome to Psychic Creations. We have an intriguing show for you today. As you know, one aspect of Psychic Creations content is of the paranormal. Our special guest today is going to be speaking on a particular angle of paranormal investigating, and that is electronic voice phenomenon, which is EVP, which is ghost speak. Please welcome our guest today, researcher Jack Albano. Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for being on the show. It's an honor. It is an honor.
Well, it's an honor to be on your show.
Oh, thanks. That's awesome. Now, what I'm going to do, viewers, is I am going to let Jack have the complete show. Okay, so he can describe and explain himself and his 10+ years of research on the true pioneers of this extraordinary scientific journey. Okay, so Jack, there you go.
Hi, I'm Jack Albano. I'm a paranormal researcher with Thin Veil Investigators, which Sandie is a part of, the leader.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I always had an interest in the paranormal since I was a kid, actually. I remember when I was in high school and even further back, just reading as much material and many books as I can on the paranormal and EVPs and the ghost hunters. Read some of Hans Holzer's, some of his books.
Mm-hmm.
He was an early pioneer of the paranormal, and I always had an interest in it. And then I really got into, about 10 years ago, actually researching back in about 2006, when I went to the Brookdale Lodge in Santa Cruz, which is a very haunted spot, and I got to investigate there for a weekend.
Oh, cool.
And did some EVP work there and took a lot of pictures, and that was exciting to be there. That has a lot of history, that place, the Brookdale Lodge.
Okay.
So maybe the viewers can check it out if they want to do the research on it on the internet. There's tons of stuff about it.
Nice, nice. Mm-hmm. Well, what got you started on exclusively researching EVPs?
Well, I think the biggest thing was when I used to listen to Coast, the radio show with Art Bell, years ago, and he would have two guests on there from the Ghost Information Society, GIS, and they would come on. It was Brandon Cook and Barbara Macbeth, and they would come on and present all their EVPs. And
nice.
They really got it out there to a large audience, because there was a lot of listeners to that show, and there still is. Mm-hmm. And they bought all their EVPs that they've, caught in cemeteries and mausoleums and all the places that they went to. And I used to listen. It used to scare the crap out of me because they, it's on late at night, and it would scare the crap out of me.
Right.
And so I was intrigued then. I was like, I would love to do this and see what I could capture. And I think that's what started me on the road of that.
Mm-hmm. To all your research.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Goodness sakes. And I see that you have done, he's got all of his notes and papers right over here. He's done an awful lot of research. Where did EVP really get its beginning?
It really started with Thomas Edison, as far as back as him, and Nikola Tesla, and Marconi, the developer of the wireless communications. They all had an interest in after-death communications, and they all believed that it was possible. A lot of people didn't know about Thomas Edison, that he had an interest in after-death communications. They just know him for his inventions.
Mm-hmm, sure. Mm-hmm.
And he was going to work on a radio or some kind of device that would that he could communicate between the spirit world, but he never had an opportunity to do that. That came later with George Meek and Spiricom, but that wasn't until years later that technology was developed.
Okay.
And then there wasn't really too much after that. In the 1930s, there was a Scandinavian military team they intercepted some strange voices that they thought was coming from the Nazis at that time.
Oh.
But actually they found out, it was like, they thought it was a Nazi code that they were using. And they found out later that it wasn't. When they went back and checked the research and everything, that it wasn't the Nazis. And so that was kind of like the first little bit of
How fascinating.
voices coming through at that time from the 30s. But see, I think that the spirit world has been waiting for the technology and to catch up. And I think as soon as we develop the technology to record voices, I think that's when it all started, because they have so much to say, I think, and they waited for that, for us to develop that. And then all the voices started coming through because they have so much to say.
Sure. I agree with you on that. Good point.
And then EVP really picked up prominence in the 1950s. That's when it really, the lid blew off of everything and went around the world from there.
Really?
That's when it really got interesting, and it came out to the public and the world, actually. And that was actually the first EVPs that were recorded. It started in the Vatican, actually, the Catholic Church.
The Vatican?
Yes. It was
Oh.
1952. There were two priests that were working in Milan, Italy. And they had just got a brand new recording device at that time. And what their intention was to do was to record the other monks chanting, like the Gregorian chant.
Okay.
They wanted to record that. And that's what their purpose was. Well, what they ended up with is one of the priest's dead father's voice came through on there.
Oh.
And he was very, startled
Oh, sure.
about that. Okay, he took the recording to the Pope, and the Pope listened to it and everything, and he was very positive about it, because you know how the Catholic Church is, everything is secret,
Sure.
and they have their own beliefs on things, and that you shouldn't talk to the dead and all that. But they were very positive about it, and
Nice.
they encouraged to do more research into it. So that's kind of
Really?
So the Catholic Church was involved, and they're still involved. But they do try to keep things secret.
Sure,
and-
yeah. Interesting. I'll be darned. Wow. Well, I see because of all your notes that you've got stacked up over there that there really is a nice timeline of who started what, when, where.
Yes, it started with Edison, like I went into, and then the 30s, and then with the Catholic Church. EVP research really came out to the world, I would say, in 1959, when the Swedish researcher Friedrich Jurgensen, which I think everybody should know, he was out in the Swedish countryside, and he was recording birdsong with his old reel-to-reel tape recorder, because that's what they had back then. They didn't have the digital technology that we have today. And he was recording birdsong, and he picked up a few voices on there of human voices,
Oh.
and he was intrigued by it. And one of them was his dead mother,
Oh.
who called him by name and said, "You're being watched, and can you see me? It's Mummy."
Oh.
So that really intrigued him to what was that, you know, and then he went into all the research for the rest of his life, actually.
Really?
Nice. He recorded thousands and thousands of voices over the years of research. After he recorded a lot of his spirit voices, he held a press conference, actually several throughout his life, and a lot of scientists took interest in it. He also wrote a book called Voices from Space, all about his EVP research, and because actually Jurgensen thought that at the time he was getting voices were coming from outer space. He didn't realize that they were from, the spirit world, which he made that connection later on, that they were from the spirit world.
Oh, cool.
And he wrote the book Voices from Space. Actually, he wrote a couple of different books throughout his lifetime, which they are never been translated into English, so they're very hard to find. And I would love to read them to really get his thoughts of what his research and how he did it, and and what his thoughts were to
Sure.
get inside his mind. But they haven't been translated into English so far.
Oh, goodness sakes. Oh. Well, if they ever do, let me know. Sure.
So when he passed away, his recordings are still out there. Some you can buy on CD, from what I understand.
Oh.
He kept his library of all his voice recordings.
Oh,
And
nice.
I don't know who's got them today, if they're in a collection somewhere, but they still exist.
Nice.
This old reel-to-reel
Sure.
microphone recording.
How fascinating.
He also, Jurgensen also coined the term polyglot voices, which meant that he would get more than one language in a sentence for his EVPs. It may have started out in German, but then went to another language, and he used that term polyglot voices.
Interesting.
And I don't know anybody else who's ever really gotten those kind of voices where it switches languages in the middle of the sentence. So I thought that was very fascinating.
Oh,
And he actually gave it the term polyglot, which nobody uses that term anymore.
No.
So that's, I thought that was,
That's very interesting. Oh,
he was quite intelligent. He spoke 10 languages.
Did he?
Yes.
Oh, goodness sakes.
Jurgensen was a painter. He was an opera singer. He was an archaeologist, a filmmaker.
Oh.
He was into many, many things.
Boy, he wore a lot of different hats, didn't he?
And I also want to add that Friedrich Jurgensen he was Swedish, and he spoke 10 languages. So he was a very intelligent man. And he was all the things that I said. He was a painter. He did it all. And he has his own radio frequency named after him.
Really?
Yes. If you go into Google and you type in 1485.0, it'll bring up the Jurgensen frequency, because he found he would get the best spirit voices at that frequency on the radio.
Really?
Yes.
Isn't that interesting? Okay.
So he has his own
Viewers,
frequency.
get on Google.
Yes, you can Google that, and it'll bring it up that it's the Jurgensen frequency, they call it, because he truly was the pioneer of EVP research. He was, a lot of people refer to him as one of the founding fathers of EVP research, and none of the modern paranormal investigators are even talking about him anymore. He's kind of forgotten to history, and I think we owe him a debt of gratitude for what he's done and putting EVP research in the spotlight.
Yes.
And yes. We as modern paranormal investigators owe him a great deal.
We do. We owe him that tribute.
And one thing that they don't that the viewer should know about Jurgensen and his EVP research is that he got full sentences, and not a lot of other investigators ever got full sentences. And of course these were in other languages.
Right.
He got them in German and Swedish and all different languages.
Wow.
And he would get full sentences.
Nice.
And I saw an old video, grainy old video on YouTube about Jurgensen, where he was playing one of his EVPs that he had caught on his old reel-to-reel tape recorder, and it was a female voice, and it was in German, and I don't know what it said, but it was a whole sentence that he recorded.
Nice. Nice.
And that's very remarkable to hear that, when you hear that.
Right.
Especially to hear EVPs in other languages, because they're not all in English.
Right.
They're
right.
in all the languages. And I've listened to hours of EVPs in other languages. Very remarkable. You can't understand what they're saying,
Right.
of course, but
Sure.
they're really remarkable to listen to.
Goodness sakes. Isn't that interesting? Wow.
Before I go into the next paranormal pioneer of EVP research, I'd like to, a little bit of trivia that I found out during my research. I I tried to go on and do the research of how many EVPs have been recorded since they started to record. In 1995, it's very hard to get an accurate number. I found something like from 1995 that there was like 5 million EVPs recorded. I don't know how they came up with that number or the estimate, but they said 5 million worldwide. And I tried to find a more modern number, but I can't really come up with anything. So if it was 5 million, then it's many, many, many more millions of
I think so.
voices, and not just by researchers, just from normal people. They have their recorders going, you know, recording other things. They're not thinking of EVP, and then they get voices on there accidentally. That's how a lot of it happens. That's when Jurgensen discovered EVP, was by accident.
Right.
He recorded voices, you know, human voices came on his recorder, and that's how a lot of times it happens. It's accidental.
It is, it is, yes.
And when he recorded, I mean, that just blew the lid off the paranormal when he got his first voices and he released that to the public. I mean, it went around the world.
Wow.
The EVP, the prominence of it, and everyone started coming out about it, and it really took off. And I think everyone needs to really know that who's involved with the paranormal is that's when it started, around the 1950s, and it just went from there, and it developed into what we have today. And it started with Jurgensen was. Of all the research I've done, it always comes back to Jurgensen.
Okay.
He did this, he did that. That's how prominent he was. And the modern researchers like us, we need to know about him.
I agree. I agree.
And give him gratitude and thankful.
Yes. Yes. Goodness sakes, yes. They do need their tribute. Awesome. Now, you had some fun trivia.
Yes, a couple other things, yes.
All right.
Back in the day, they used to call EVPs utterances before they had the term EVP, because that's what they were, is utterances. And, you know, they weren't all clear.
Sure.
The voices wouldn't come in all clear, so that's what they used to call them back then.
I like that.
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Nobody in the modern time uses that right now, but that's what they used to call them way back in the day.
That's a cool word, utterances. Nice.
I thought so. It's just something that's kind of fun.
Sure. And then you had something about the
ITC stands for Instrumental Transcommunication. And EVP falls under that. It's like an umbrella, a term.
Oh, okay.
So it incorporates EVPs, direct radio communication.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
See, EVPs and direct radio communication are different things.
Okay.
An EVP is like you ask questions on a recorder or whatever you're using, and then you wait, for the response, and then you play it back later, and then you hear the voices. With direct radio communication, you're actually carrying on a conversation in real time with the spirits.
Nice, nice, nice. Okay.
So there's a difference there.
Yeah, sure.
And even mediumship, that, as you are, falls under the ITC banner.
Oh, really? Well,
Yes.
I did not know that. How about that?
Did you feel special?
I do. I feel very special. Interesting. Okay. Very interesting.
I would like to know what the real actual number is now of how many EVPs recorded around the world. There has to be millions, hundreds of millions maybe by now.
I agree with you on that, especially because, well, gosh, when was it the digital recorders came out? 12 years ago or so, and then that just started a whole new line.
Another thing I wanted to mention, because you said about the digital recorders, was when they first started out with tape, and they were using tapes, and then they would use the old. Well, first they started out with reel-to-reel, and then they went into the other, the other tape recorders where you use the little cassette. When they started using those, that was the standard for quite a while before digital came along. And when the digital voice recorders started coming in to use, a lot of the researchers didn't like the digital recorders, and they didn't think that they could get voices on the digital recorders.
Oh, okay.
I found that out too, and which we know that's not true.
Oh, yes.
We all used the digital recorders, and we got all good results with it.
Sure.
So that's how far the EVP research has progressed, from the reel to the digital, and you know, people's attitudes changed.
Sure. Yeah.
The digital won't work, and now we know it does.
Right.
So everybody's moved towards that.
Right.
And everybody's using that now.
Sure. Progress. You bet. Awesome.
So I thought that was interesting.
Now, who's next in line in your genealogy of true scientific paranormal investigation?
Well, in 1964, Friedrich Jurgensen wrote a book, Voices from Space. And he published it, and it was a success, and it piqued a lot of interest. And then another researcher, Konstantin Raudove, is another one that, as another person that all the modern paranormal investigators should know about, because he was also one of the founding fathers of EVP research. He read Jurgensen's book, and he was intrigued by it. And so he set up a meeting with Jurgensen, and they did some work together and recorded a lot of voices together.
Nice.
And then Raudove kind of went out on his own, and he really spent the rest of his life researching the EVP, and he set up a lot of the protocols for EVP that we use now.
Oh, is that right?
One thing people don't know is that Konstantin Raudove, he started the EVP classification system, where he was a Class A, Class B, and Class C is with the rating.
Okay.
And most people don't know that, and that's where that started. So when everyone says Class A EVP, we should be giving some thanks to Konstantin Raudove, because he's the one that started the classification.
Can you tell our viewers what the different classes are?
Okay, Class A is the clearest, loudest voice, and we've all caught Class A EVPs,
yes,
so we know how good they are. Class B is kind of in the middle. You can kind of make out some of it, and some of it you can't. And then the Class C is like the worst, where it's kind of hard to make out. It could be just an utterance or a noise. It's not really distinct as a Class A EVP is.
Interesting. Okay. Cool.
And Raudove also set up a lot of different recording methods. He used the radio, the interfrequency recording, where he would go between stations and just get that white noise, and he would ask his questions.
Nice.
He started that.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
Raudove and Jurgensen also, they used the microphone and the recorder. They're the ones that started that.
Okay.
With their reel-to-reels, they had their microphones. They would ask their questions. Raudove, he did more of radio, where he could communicate with the spirits through the radio.
Oh, okay.
More than Jurgensen would just have his recorder going with the microphone, ask questions.
Okay.
So they were kind of different there in that respect. He also did diode recording. He developed that. A diode, you'll have to look that up, because it's a piece of electronic equipment that acts like a receiver. And he just used a diode plugged into his recorder without a microphone, and he got voices through a diode. And the viewers can research that online, what a diode is, because it's very technical. You have to have a degree in communications to understand it.
Right. Interesting, though. I'll be darned.
And then Raudove also wrote a book in 1971 called Breakthrough, where he described all his research into EVP, the voices that he got, and all his research and experimentations. And that is a book that I would love to read, and everyone should read.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you bet. You'd like that way to research.
Another type of recording that he perfected, Raudove, was the frequency transmitting recording, which is like using white noise.
Okay.
To amplify the voices, and that's kind of how the modern spirit boxes work.
Sure.
They generate the white noise, and so Raudove was the one that first started that. So we owe him thanks for that too.
Yes, we do. Oh, isn't this fascinating, viewers?
Okay, it's estimated that in the research that Radave recorded probably up to 100,000 spirit voices that he recorded in his time.
Wow.
That's a phenomenal number.
That is.
I don't know of any modern researchers that ever recorded that many.
Right. I think we have
in
to.
his years of research.
Oh, sure. We have a couple more to record to get to that
Yes,
number.
we do.
How many years was Constantine recording EVPs?
From the research, it's about 10 years.
Oh, okay.
Because when he first read Jurgensen's book in '64, and then he teamed up with Jurgensen since then, and then he died in 1974. So for about 10 years, the last 10 years of his life.
Okay, interesting.
He also was wanted to see if he could replicate it in a controlled environment.
Oh.
In a studio. Where the studio was screened out from picking up any stray radio frequencies or any other disturbances. Pi Records in London was a recording studio, and they contacted Radave because they wanted to do a controlled EVP session in a pristine recording studio where they could control everything and keep it insulated from stray radio signals or any kind of voice interference. And it was an 18-minute session, and Radave recorded hundreds of voices within that 18 minutes in a controlled setting. And they wanted to, because he wanted to see if it was just, he was curious too, was it stray radio communicated? Was it other kind of sound interferences? But in that controlled environment, he still got spirit voices, hundreds, within an 18-minute time frame. So that convinced him, convinced the world, convinced the scientists. Some of them, some are still skeptics.
Sure, oh yeah.
And what really started Radave kind of believing, because he was a skeptic at first.
Oh, okay.
Himself.
Okay.
Even working with Jurgensen, he was kind of a skeptic until he recorded his EVP on his own. He got a voice saying, "Do you know Margaret?" And it just so happens that he knew a woman named Margaret who passed away earlier. So he got that voice, and then he knew it was for real, and that's what really took off. We took off on his research from there because he was really intrigued by that.
Kind of nice to get some confirmation. Wow, interesting. Very interesting. Cool.
Another thing that I came across in the research, Constantine Radave died in 1974, and when he died, his spirit, he made several phone calls after he passed.
He did?
Yes, Radave did from the other side. And there's recordings on the internet that you can listen to that's supposed to be his voice. He recorded, he called George Meek, which was the inventor of Spiricom, and left him a message that he was watching him, and he thanked him for all his research. He contacted Sarah Estep, which I'll talk about in a minute, and thanked her. And he said he's part of the spirit team that's over on the other side that is working to better the communication between the spirit world and this world.
Oh, how awesome.
He came out that there was a spirit team. And just to hear his voice from the other side, it's amazing. When he made the phone calls, there's no dial tone. I don't know if you ever received a call like that from a spirit on the phone, but there's never a dial tone, and there wasn't on these calls.
Really? Isn't that?
And that's amazing. And also, actually, Jurgensen and Radave's voices are now appearing on some of the EVPs for the modern research. Their voices are coming through.
Really?
So I think they're on the other side. They're trying to establish communications and guide the modern investigators and improve communications between the two worlds.
love this.
I would love to get their voices.
Sure.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
That would be totally awesome. Oh my God.
But I think that's awesome that they brought out that there's a spirit team on the other side doing this.
Yeah.
Doing this, trying to better the communication between the two worlds. That's fascinating.
Yes. Why not? They want to speak with us just like we want to speak with them. So all of this is fascinating. Wow.
So Radave was another pioneer, like I said, and we owe him much of the EVP research, the protocols, the classification systems that he put into place.
Oh yeah.
We, as modern EVP, recorders and investigators, we owe him a lot. And
we do.
He's another one like Jurgensen that's lost to history. None of the modern investigators are talking about him right now, and they should be, because we owe those two gentlemen a lot.
Yes, we do. True pioneers. True pioneers.
And I think any paranormal investigator worth their salt should know who they are and do the research on them. Agreed. And there's so much research online, so many things you can find out. You could spend months and months to try to gather all the information, because there's so much out there. Some of it's good, some of it isn't. You have to filter through it. Sure. There's a lot of videos, YouTube, that is good about the two men. A lot of it is garbage, and there's a lot of good stuff you have to weed through, but you get to the good stuff, and there's some good videos out there. Well, you're sure teaching us about your history, the history, with your research, what you're speaking about now. It's very fascinating. Yeah. Once you start this, and you start researching a certain person, other research will come up, other people will come up, and then you go off in this direction and this direction. Because the history and the scope of EVP is so immense, I didn't even know how big it really is. And it's fascinating to me. Sure. And I learned so much, and I can go on and continue to learn because there's so much more. Oh, just progress. Yes, progression. And then there's other researchers that have come from the timeline into the modern, where we're at now. Yes, in I think 1978 to 1982, George Meek and William O'Neill, they developed Spiricom, and the viewers can go online and do all the research and see what Spiricom was, and it was a communication device that you could communicate with the spirit world in real time, and that's the first time that's kind of ever been done. Okay. It was a machine that generated 13 tonal frequencies, and it was developed working with a deceased scientist by George Jeffries Mueller. Okay. Was a deceased scientist who came through and worked with George Meek to develop Spiricom and told him how to build it. Really? And you can go. Anybody can go online and listen to the Spiricom recordings of the real-time communication between William O'Neill and Dr. Mueller. Wow. As we're talking, you can hear that, and that is the most amazing thing. And he was telling them how to make Spiricom better, how to, build it better, to make the communication better between the spirit world. And that is that's a huge thing. George Meek really took EVP research and spirit communication in a whole new direction with Spiricom. Sure. And in 1982, he held a press conference, and he released his findings to the public, to the scientists. A lot of them were skeptical. He let them listen to the recordings that he made, and they were skeptical, and they didn't know what to make of it, of course. Sure, right. And it's really fascinating, and people should go online and listen to it. You can listen to it all online. The actual dialogue is cool. Kind of hard to hear some of it because of the frequency generators. There's was 13 of them, so it kind of gets a little irritating when you hear it. But you can hear the voice of Dr. Mueller in there explaining how to make Spiricom better, what to do, the adjustments to make, and that's fascinating. Really, it's awesome. Oh, it truly is. Good. Wow, viewers, isn't he awesome?
Wow.
As I
Okay.
said, there's so much research.
Sure.
You
Oh,
can-
yeah.
And I hope the viewers will take the time to do some of the research online.
Well, I think we all should, huh? Yeah. Cool. And is there someone else now that
There's
is
a
going
few
along the
more,
timeline?
actually. The timeline, and then Sarah Estep.
Mhm.
She also was involved with EVP research, and she used the method of the radio and the microphone, the recording
Mm-hmm.
that way. That's how she did
Okay.
it,
Mm-hmm.
like direct radio communication. And she started the foundation. It's the American Association of Electronic Voice Phenomena, which is still in operation today. They still have a website, and you
Nice.
can go on and you could. They are looking for researchers who want to be involved with EVP.
Mm-hmm.
Send in their voice samples. And
Nice.
she started that, and she recorded thousands of EVPs herself
Mm-hmm.
over the years, and she wrote 2 books on the subject
Oh,
of her. And you can also go on YouTube, and there's some great videos of her and all her EVP voices that she
Mm-hmm.
received.
Nice.
And when Konstantin Radove died in '74, he called Sarah Estep on the phone and thanked her for all her research and all the advancements that she made.
Really?
And you can listen to that online, and that is amazing to listen to.
Sure. I'm kind of like stunned here. I don't know what to say to that. Isn't that fascinating?
Like I said, when you start doing this research, you come to all kind of fascinating
Oh,
things
sure.
and stuff that you run into. It's really amazing.
Nice. Nice. Now, who's last on your list?
There's a couple more I'd like to talk about.
Okay.
One of the more modern, and just to say, Sarah Estep, she crossed over in 2008.
Oh, okay. Not that long
And
ago.
there's a lot of history of her that you could read online
Mhm.
and her research. And her voice also is coming through now on some of the EVP recordings, as like she's trying to direct the communications now. And
With the spirit team or just for herself?
it seems like she could be part of the spirit team.
Okay.
I'm not really sure about that.
Sure.
That's not.
We'll have to ask her.
Yeah. Yeah, when we do our EVP sessions, we'll
Right.
ask for some of these
Yeah,
people. Maybe
right.
they'll come through for us
Exactly.
and tell us.
Yeah.
One other person I want to mention, more of a modern research, he's still alive, is Alexander McRae. He was a Scottish engineer that worked for NASA for a while,
Oh, okay.
and was their sound engineer for NASA.
Oh, cool.
And he got into EVP research as well, and he also wrote a book.
Nice, nice.
Everybody's writing books.
Yes, I like that idea.
And he's been in it for like 20 years, research,
Mhm.
and he's also recorded thousands of voices.
Mhm.
He also did the controlled experiment in a studio,
Oh, nice,
and
okay.
he also received the voices through in a controlled environment.
Mhm.
And his conclusion was that EVP is a paranormal event.
Thank you. Thank him. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and thank him for
Yes, yeah.
So he came out and he said that it is a paranormal event. It's not any stray radio frequencies
Mhm.
or any of the other explanations that the skeptics will give
Mm-hmm.
for what it
Nice.
is.
Very
So
nice.
that's awesome. And he's still alive and he's still doing research.
Mhm. Nice. I like that. I'm glad that he, an engineer, a sound engineer, made that verification. I like that idea. Yeah.
But he kind of came up with a hypothesis that, or something he believed, is that for the spirits to communicate, it needed they need a person to go through. Is what he was.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Like the person doing the EVP recording, he said that possibly they go through that person to record
Okay.
their voices, because that's open to debate of how the voices get on to the tapes or the digital
Mm-hmm.
media.
Exactly.
And there's still a debate about that now,
Mhm.
how the spirits put their voices there.
Right.
And that's going to be an ongoing thing, I think, for
Sure.
a long time.
Right. Right. Okay. That's a good point. That's a fascinating point, but that's
So his thing was, do they use our energy? Do they use our voices? Do they put their voices in our minds, and then it translates to the digital media.
I see.
There's so many different theories of how they do this. It's fascinating.
Awesome.
And I think that's something we'll never know, is how the voices actually get on the tapes or the whatever you're using to record with.
Well, let's hope that scientific sound engineers like McCrae,
Yes, Alexander McCrae.
let's hope that he will be able to discover just that exact point. How are the voices being recorded, or not recorded, but coming through?
Yes, I think that will be my focus.
Sure.
After doing all this research, is trying to figure that out. I don't know if I ever will, or if we ever will, but we'll keep going at it.
Exactly.
Doing the research, and maybe we'll come up with more answers.
Exactly.
Because in this field of the paranormal, there's more questions than there are answers.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Are you going to write a book?
I should.
You should. After all these years of research, I think that you should. Awesome.
The last paranormal pioneer is modern. He's still alive. Is Gary Gulka.
Okay.
I don't know if you're familiar with him or not.
No.
He is an electrical engineer, and his teenage daughter died in a car crash. And after she died, a lot of strange things started happening around his house. The doorbell would ring, the TV would turn on, and he thought it was his daughter. His daughter's name was Melissa, and he thought it was his daughter Melissa trying to communicate with him after her death. But he didn't have any way to communicate with her. He had nothing to communicate with. So Gary Gulka, being that he was an engineer, electronical engineer, he developed the first piece of paranormal equipment he developed was the Mel meter, which I'm sure we're all familiar with the Mel meter. And that's the first piece of equipment that he developed.
I'll be darned. Okay.
And that's what and then he started a company called DAS Distributors, and that's what he does now. He creates paranormal equipment. He created the SB7 and the SB11 Spirit Box.
Really? Oh,
He created
nice.
an EVP recorder. He created the REM pod, which is like a motion detector, which some researchers use on their investigations. And he also, Gary Gulka also has a YouTube channel that you should subscribe to. Every once in a while he'll post videos of some of his daughter's visitations to their house. And he puts some awesome things up there. And he also has some EVPs of her that he recorded up there on his channel. And I think that's worth a look. And if they want to, the viewers want to do more research into Gary Gulka, he's online. You can do a lot of research on him.
Nice. Now, everybody that you have spoken about during the show today, they're all on Google, YouTube, everywhere.
Yes, you can go on Google and you can type in the history of EVP and it'll bring up 10 million pages.
Nice. I'm sure
Basically,
it will.
yes, it will.
I'm sure it will.
And then they have YouTube. Like I said, you can find a lot of good information about all of these people on there. It's just there's a lot of garbage, but if you weed through it, there's a lot of good videos up there.
Right. Sure.
In closing, I'd just like to make a few comments.
Sure.
There's
you bet.
some theories going on out there. One is when the ghosts and spirits when they communicate with us, do they manipulate the electromagnetic spectrum, or do they create an electromagnetic spectrum to be able to communicate with us?
Very interesting
And
point.
that's a debate that's going on right now. It's been going on for years, and I think it will continue in the future because we just don't know.
Sure, that's true.
And I don't think we'll ever know, but that's one of the theories out there.
That's a good theory. I like that.
Also, EVP makes a lot of assumptions, and I don't think people really understand what's the word I want to use? Help me, Carolyn. What's the word?
What are you trying to say?
Oh, okay. Hold on.
So just leave it going.
I don't think
That's okay, that's all right.
I've got like 10 tongues I'm
Yeah,
flipping over.
that's all right.
Okay, hold on. She wants to kill me, this lady, or she's sick of me. I want to add too, I don't think that people really know the implications of the EVP work and what the voices mean. And if they do, I think they kind of treat it like flippantly. The meaning of it is life after death, that there is an afterlife. And the voices are coming through from another dimension. And I just don't, people don't take that serious enough for me.
Mm-hmm.
Even the modern paranormal researchers seem like they don't.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And I think they should give it more respect.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good point. Very good point.
And also EVP, it's just the whole idea of it, it makes a lot of assumptions that the spirits want to communicate with us.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have something to say? And are they able to communicate with us?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer to that is yes,
Mm-hmm.
they can, of course.
Mm-hmm.
This comes back to that spirit team that's on the other side, they're trying to better that communication and make it more possible between the two worlds.
Exactly.
I think that's interesting. I think those are things that the modern paranormal researchers should think about when they're out there doing their EVPs sessions.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And try to find those answers.
Mm-hmm. And above all, it's miraculous when you stop and think about it. These voices are coming from
It is. It's very
somewhere.
Yes, and they're coming from another dimension, and I think do people understand the implications of that, what that means? I don't think they do, or they don't take it serious enough for me. That's my feeling on it, and we should.
We
shouldn't treat it flippantly. You know, it's like we need to take it more serious because there's big implications.
Take it from Jack, with all his years and decades of research, he's got a very good point.
And one other thing in closing, again, I'll say we owe gratitude. We should pay gratitude to Konstantin Radové and Friedrich Jurgensen. They are the two founding fathers of EVP research, and I think to leave them behind and not talk about them, I think is wrong. We need to, and I'm glad I was able to do this show to bring that out, and maybe it'll get more people into researching them and their research that they did so many years ago.
Right.
And who knows, when they're recording their EVP sessions, they might get their voices because they are appearing on some of the EVP sessions. That's amazing.
That is amazing. That's amazing. Well, we hope that they come to us too in some of our recordings.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
I think that would be awesome and be verification of a great many things.
Thank you, Jack, very much for being this awesome guest on
you're
Psychic
welcome.
Creation. You brought a lot of clarification and more questions.
Yes, there's
And
always more questions.
A lot of interesting information that you gave, well, us and our viewers today. So thank you very much for being
You're
awesome.
welcome. Thank
guest.
you.
All right. Well, we hope that you enjoyed this fascinating Psychic Creation show. And if you would like to be a guest on Psychic Creations, please know that the content is of the, well, paranormal and all other sorts of wonderful and informational and interesting topics and subjects. You can contact me at my website, which is www.sandypsychicstones.com, or at my email address, which is admin@sandypsychicstones.com. Thank you for watching Psychic Creations, and we'll see you next show. Thank you.
Thank you.